Yeah, so talking about learning Python, right? A lot of people talk down on it because it makes things easy, but that's the whole point, right? Like, yes, we could spend the months, years to learn the fundamentals, but we're trying to learn cybersecurity now. And we don't need to know every in and out of computer science for us to do our job. For example, encryption. When you're handling encryption in cybersecurity, you're typically not messing with the mathematical formula. You're typically dealing with how are you handling the keys. If you're really looking to become an expert now, you need to make use of what's available to use now without feeling too curious to go down all these rabbit holes, right? So here we have a prompt, learn cybersecurity with Python, and it gives us a few phases, right? And it even gives us the time. So you're not going to do everything in this one window, right? So what I would say to do is you would say, okay, I'm going to take this, put this side by side, okay? And we would say, give me some tasks to learn these things in Python. All right. So we're going to be learning variables, data types, operators, input, output. Here's a simple calculator that you could do, right? So you would have to learn how to use input to get those from the user, right? Not sure how to do that, you could ask for more help, but notice that we're not asking for the answer to this within this same window, right? We're not doing it here because we're trying to keep this document clean so we can refer to it, bookmark it for the future. You see what I'm saying? And then you can have like a secondary AI model or window to handle those tasks in between the major milestones. And you'll notice that they get progressively harder, right? We have the basic syntax, conditionals, loops, we've seen all that plenty of times. Then we get into functions. Okay, modules and libraries, right? This is where it gets a little bit more in depth because you're using third-party code or creating code to be imported somewhere else. Then you start getting into file handling, data structures, and they each have their own different quirks about how they can be manipulated, right? Then you start learning about classes, right? Which is basically where you make a template of the functions, attributes, properties, whatever logic that you want that you think you're going to be using multiple times. Just make a template of it, and then you can just make a new instance of that class and apply whatever it is that's needed to make that thing run, right? So you can have an instance of a car, for example. All cars have wheels, but they all have different paint jobs, right? Different color, right? Different engine types. So your class for car would include color, engine type, right? Maybe even the year. And then when you create a new instance of the car, you would make, car one equals new class car, and then plug in the values. All right, and check this out. This is this is only phase one, right? So just from this simple prompt, we already have an entire roadmap for the next 8 weeks, right? Assuming that you do 4 to 6 hours a week. To be real, I think 4 to 6 hours a week is like, it's lightweight, baby. That's like nothing, dude. It's like 30 minutes a day if you were to do the minimum. I think, like realistically, a person could do 2 hours a day, right? And if you do that even just 5 days out the week, that's almost double what we have listed here. So you basically finish phase one twice as fast, right? By just doing 2 hours a day. It's not much to ask for, right? Okay, so let's see. Then we get into different IDEs, right? Different coding environments. This book, right? Like maybe you can be reading this before bed, right? Code Academy, maybe, right? I found Free Code Camp and all those different sites. I just feel like I'm being talked to like a toddler. I don't know how to explain it. They're good. Like if it's better than mindless scrolling, but I'm looking to, kind of get my hands dirty. You know what I mean? And when I'm using those web-based programming interfaces, I don't know. It just doesn't feel real. I don't know let me know in the comments if I'm alone on that. Okay. And then look, this one is actually having us write a calculator on this task that was first given when I prompted it. So it's funny that it's already putting me down here. So maybe it will take less time than 30 hours, right? Okay, let's see. Phase two would be looking into more intermediate scripting, utilizing file directories, sub processes for running shell commands, right? So I actually do this a lot in my videos where instead of me making the logic to do something, if there's a shell tool, a CLI tool that I can just call to do that for me, I'm gonna do that every time. Phase 2 of this Python roadmap has some real stuff in it. Okay, you're gonna learn some sockets, right? Again, you just copy this and you put it into another chat window and say, "Give me tasks for this." If you don't have the answers that you need, AI will be generated in your Google search, right? There's no shame in you referencing something and using your tools to learn. I understand the stigma of like just copying, pasting, and not understanding anything about it. Totally get that. Don't be that person. Write as much as you can on your own. But if you don't know the syntax, you don't know the syntax. You see? So when I was going through this like simple example here, I was pointing out that if you just hover over the method, you will see how to use it, right? Now, if you're looking at this and you're like, dude, this looks like a different language to me. I really don't understand what the hell this means, because it's frustrating, right? The IDE is giving you the answer on how to use this tool, but you may not know what that exactly means, okay? So again, there's no shame in looking it up. So let's go ahead and copy this. I'll come over to Claude. All right. And we're just going to ask, can you explain every bit of this to me? All right. So we were last on phase 2. Okay. Phase 2. And this is where you get more into networking basics. Okay. So what good is it knowing how to code an HTTP post request if you don't know what the hell an HTTP post request is? What good is it to learn how to program sockets if you don't know what a socket is? So this is kind of where I notice frustration happens, because it's essentially at a point to where you learn how to use the hammer, you learn how to use the nail, the measuring tape, and the saw, but you know nothing about how to build a solid frame, right? You would have had to read some books on how to build a solid frame. And that's where you get more into the training that's provided from, Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, books, courses, certificate programs that you may take. So anyway, yeah, when you get to your networking basics, you're going to want to know some basics about networking, right? So use your nighttime reading to go read all that stuff that sounds boring, but is actually going to be super important for you later on. Working with APIs, this is more of my strong suit, because I come from web development, right? And that's a lot of dealing with backend, needing to have data sent to the front end and vice versa. API keys, right? Like if you're using some third-party code, you need to have a key to let you use the service, and you need to protect that key. Various forms of authentication, right? Now, repetition's dope, and not enough people practice enough, right? They'll get it one or two times, like they'll code something one or two times, like, okay, I got it, and then it's like a passing memory. It's a fleeting memory. Next time you find yourself in that same problem, you're like, dang it, I remember I did this before, right? But if you did it 10 times, then it's easy. So that's where also the importance of GitHub comes in, right? You're going to want to learn also some version control, right? Especially with vibe coding becoming like the newest thing. And I have nothing against vibe coding, because now we have people who always want to learn how to code finally looking at code. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't see how that's a bad thing in any way. Of course, it opens the door for more technology being built, which means more vulnerabilities being spread. I get that, right? But ultimately people are learning faster than ever before, and it's going to increase competition. It's going to piss some people off. So yeah, man, version control is super important, because when you're using AI to generate your code, it may generate something that will completely crash your repo. And like everything was working until you put in that one stupid prompt response, and you're kind of screwed, because how are you going to get it back? You know what I mean? So if you got some version control going on, it'll be good. Okay. There's 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. Okay. Let me go and put a notepad out. Yeah, it's going to be one of those talks, right? Let's go through it. So we have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 168 hours. Okay. You need to sleep. So let's say you did your full 8. So 8 hours times 7 days. 56 hours. So you're left with 168 minus 56, 112 hours. Okay? You got a full-time job, all right? You got to work. You got to feed yourself, pay your bills, right? Let's say you work full-time. So that's 40 hours a week. Let's say you even drive, right? So that's a 50-hour transit. So let's say 50 hours for work. Okay? So how many hours are you left with? 62. This is for the week. Okay, you got a family. You got a girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever. And let's see, out of these 62 hours per day in the week, we divide that by 7. That's almost 9 hours left in the day. Let's say 8.8 hours left in each day. Let's say you give your partner or your family 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is 21 hours. So now you're left with 41 hours in a week. I mean, come on. Okay, you want to go out. You want to party, right? You want to go have some fun. Maybe you're in college, right? How much time do you spend partying, going out to eat? Maybe 10 hours a week. So 10 hours for partying a week. You're still left with 31 hours. You want to sit around, watch some football, watch some soccer, play some video games, maybe another 15 hours a week. You're left with 16 hours in a week. The roadmap that was first given to us from Grok is only asking for 5 to 7 a week. And even if we lived the most full life with a family, a job, partying and video games, we could still do 3 times that. So, no excuses. There's no excuses. You got plenty of time. We will then proceed on with the next phase that is being suggested for this roadmap. So after multi-threading, we have error handling, right? Just writing efficient code or optimized code. This is actually phase 2, my apologies. And then we also have here Postman, okay? I have a video, learn how to hack and fix API vulnerabilities, that is using Postman heavily in that video. There you see how to create the requests for both post and get methods on a web server, and then showing how the web server's logic is not written properly to allow users to protect their information. That was a BOLA, broken object level authorization. Phase 3, okay, so phase 3, cybersecurity fundamentals. This is where we're going to understand core cybersecurity concepts to apply Python effectively. Of course, we're going to have some networking concepts we'll need to be familiar with: TCP, the OSI model, DNS, HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, ports, protocols, and packet analysis. Probably going to be using a lot of Scapy there. Your cybersecurity basics, your CIA triad, all right, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, all right? These are always going against each other, right? Because if I'm looking to have a resource with high availability, there's not much confidentiality that's being used there. And if I completely make something confidential, there is no availability to it, right? And then anytime someone accesses that data, it can affect the integrity of it. That's like the one-liner of the CIA triad. You'll need to understand some common threats. Notice that in this phase, it's less about the Python code and more about the actual concepts themselves. If I were to get into this section of malware phishing, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and DDoS, these also require there to be a target, right? Like if you're practicing SQL injection, there needs to be a place to practice SQL injection on. And to attack it with Python is one task, and then to make the target to attack is another task. You may not need to make it, the target, by hand or on your own. You could just go find another resource to practice on, like the DVWA web app, the damn vulnerable web application, right? That's a tool out there that you can use to practice these things and then maybe you can automate them with Python. But the point is that notice that in this phase, there is hardly anything remotely close specifically to the Python language. It is more about the concepts of what you're looking to now apply with the language. Going into phase 4, all right. Notice we're looking into doing some packet crafting with Scapy. Nmap has a Python library. This is for network security, all right? Notice that there's these subfields, right? There's like cybersecurity is the umbrella, right? Now you have different types of security. Network security, web security, cryptography, log and data analysis, exploit development, malware analysis. Do you need to know all of these? Do you? Maybe. It'd be cool to know all of them, right? But if you're more looking into doing network stuff, maybe you don't need to do exploit development. You know what I mean? Because you're just looking how to monitor the network, how to inspect the packets, how to detect anything that is out of the ordinary. Let's see, Black Hat Python. I had a viewer on my channel suggest this book. I checked it out on Google. They actually have a free 44 pages of a preview. It's another tip. Look for book previews before you go spending your money. It's the previews are legal, right? And you'll typically see whether or not you think this will be worth the purchase. And the thing with this book is it's like, you know, straight to the face. Here's the code to do this crazy stuff. But he's also talking to the reader in a way that they already have some understanding of what they're doing to attack. Okay? So, for example, there is a scenario in here where he's talking about creating a reverse shell. And typically, the easiest way you can do that is through Netcat. But sometimes the system admins will remove Netcat from the server. So this is the code that would be used. He explains it all. But if you don't know what a reverse shell is, right? If you don't know what Netcat is, then this is going to be like meaningless to you. With following a roadmap, you should keep in mind that you are doing it for yourself, right? You're doing it to build the callus. All the answers could be given to you from AI, but we're looking to use AI to find the homework, not to do our homework. All right, so moving into phase 5 of this roadmap, we have advanced cybersecurity with Python. This is where you would do automating Metasploit with Python. What? You imagine you just automate all those commands for yourself? Also writing custom exploits with Pwn tools. Threat intelligence. This is another library. I said this before. Different fields require different libraries, and different libraries have their own rules, their own syntax, their own documentation, right? So it's important, I believe, to just pick one and get good with that one if you're really about that specific field. If you don't know what field that you're going to go into or that you want to go into, mess with all of them, right? And then before you know it, you may find one that just takes up your whole day, and before you know it, it's dark outside. You know what I mean? If you're looking to do cloud security, right? Here we go. Python for GCP, right? Google and AWS. We have machine learning for cybersecurity. We have a scikit-learn for anomaly detection. We have other tools and CLI tools that we can look into. That's going into weeks 10 to 12 if you're doing 6 to 8 hours a week. Okay, so again, if you're able to pop out with a full life of work and play and a family, you can still get this to be 16 hours a week of you practicing. That is going to be actually week 5 through 7. Already making greater leaps in your competence, you see, just by putting in that extra amount of time, right? And it's not asking for much. It's not asking for much. I think this is the last one. Yep, phase 6, capstone projects and certifications. Okay, so we are looking here with the goal of applying knowledge to real-world scenarios and earn credentials. Okay, the why. Projects demonstrate skills to employers. Certifications validate expertise. Dude, that is like so beautifully written right there. Projects demonstrate skills, certifications validate expertise. Okay? So that's like the biggest question. Are certificates worth it? Well, do you need to validate your expertise? Do you even have the skills, right? Okay, but one thing you do have though is the time to get both of those. Your key projects on this phase, according to Grok from this simple prompt, is to build a Python-based penetration testing framework, custom scanner, and exploit tool. Okay. Develop a log parser. Notice parsing has come up a few times for detecting suspicious activity in server logs. An OSINT tool to gather and analyze public data. Write a script for automated vulnerability scanning and reporting. Oh, look, your Security Plus, your EJPT. You have intermediate certifications that you can get, right? Again, cross-reference these with your lists when you were going through the jobs to find out, what you might want. If you're looking for something Python specific, I think I took this one, bro. I think I got this one. Yeah, I have this one. Goes into a lot of Scapy, analyzing packets. Hack the box, try hack me. There you go. Popping up again and again, right? Publishing your projects on GitHub. We talked a bit about version control in this live stream. And then join cybersecurity communities. Oh, wow, look at that. Gives you the whole roadmap. Some additional tips. Practice on legal environments. Yes, always. Unauthorized hacking is illegal. It doesn't matter what your intent is. You attack a machine, even though you're saying, oh, I'm not going to do anything bad, though, it is still illegal. So make sure you're using sandbox environments or self-hosted labs. Some tips for lab setup using VirtualBox, VMware. Plenty of videos on my channel that go over how you can set those things up. There's even a video called Setting Up an Ethical Hacking Lab, a beginner's guide, where we use Kali Linux and Metasploitable to start our journey. Total duration is 6 to 18 months to basically be a cybersecurity Python master with only 5 to 7 hours a week. Again, if you applied 16 hours a week to this, you could easily lower this down to 6 to 9 months.